Google just published a new guide for optimizing your website for generative AI features in Google search. And honestly, this is one of the clearest statements Google has made so far about the relationship between SEO, AI overviews, AI mode, AEO, GEO, and this growing conversation around AI agents. So let's break down what Google actually said, what they did not say, and what website owners, SEOs, content teams, e-commerce brands, and local businesses should take away from this. The biggest point is this: Google is not saying that SEO is dead. In fact, Google is saying almost the opposite. Their new guide says that the best practices for SEO still apply because Google's generative AI features are rooted in Google's core search ranking and quality systems. That matters. And because a lot of the industry conversation right now is framed like this is a brand new discipline. You'll hear people say things like AEO, GEO, answer engine optimization, generative engine optimization, AI visibility optimization, AI search optimization, and a dozen other names. But Google's message is basically for Google search, optimizing for generative AI search is still optimizing for search. In other words, this is SEO, not a separate magical discipline, not a secret new checklist, not a hidden markup trick. SEO. Now, that does not mean nothing has changed.
The SEO Arch experience is clearly changing.
Google is pushing harder into AI overviews, AI mode, and more generative answers inside search. Their guide specifically mentions that people are gravitating to generative AI experiences to find information. And Google says this creates new opportunities to reach people who may be more likely to engage, spend time with your content, subscribe, or purchase. So the opportunity is real. But the way to pursue that opportunity is not by abandoning SEO fundamentals. It is by understanding how Google's AI experiences use search. Google talks about two important concepts in the guide: retrieval augmented generation and query fan out. Retrieval augmented generation, or RAG, is basically when an AI system grounds its response in retrieved information. In Google's case, they describe this as relying on their core search ranking systems to retrieve relevant and up-to-date pages from the search index. Then the systems review information from those pages to help generate a response with clickable links to relevant pages. That's a huge point because it means visibility in Google's AI features is not disconnected from the search index. Your page still needs to be discoverable. It still needs to be indexable. It still needs to be eligible to appear in search. And it still needs to be the kind of content Google's systems can understand and trust enough to use. And the second concept is query fan out. And this is when the model generates a set of related searches to get more information and better answer the user's query. For example, if someone searches for how to fix a lawn full of weeds, Google says the system might also look at related queries like best herbicides for lawns, removing weeds without chemicals, or preventing weeds in a lawn. And that is important because it changes how we should think about topical coverage, not in the old school sense of creating 50 thin pages for every keyword variation. Google specifically warns against that. But it does mean your content should deeply and clearly cover the real subtopics, questions, comparisons, objections, and decision points that matter to the user. The goal is not to manufacture pages for every fan out query. The goal is to create a genuinely useful resource that can satisfy a broader range of related information needs. Now let's talk about the content guidance, because this is probably the most important part of the entire document. Google says that creating content people find unique, compelling, and useful will likely influence your presence in generative AI search in the long run more than any other suggestion in the guide. That is a strong statement. And Google puts a lot of emphasis on what they call non-commodity content. This is where I think a lot of publishers, SEOs, and brands need to pay close attention. Google gives the example of commodity content like 7 tips for first-time homebuyers. That kind of article is common knowledge. It could come from anyone, and it usually adds very little unique insight. And frankly, it is exactly the kind of content generative AI can produce all day long. Then Google contrasts that with a more specific experience driven example, something like why we waived the inspection and saved money, a look inside the sewer line. That second example has a point of view. It has experience and it has details. It has a real world angle that is much harder to commoditize. This is the part SEOs should be underlining because Google is not just saying write good content. They are saying the content that has the best long term chance in generative AI search is content with unique viewpoints, original experience, expert insight, useful structure, and value beyond common knowledge. So if your content strategy is still built around generic listicles, rewritten competitor articles, lightly edited AI outputs, or ultimate guides that say the same thing everyone else says, this guide is basically a warning that content might not be enough. And it may become even less effective as generative AI search matures. Now, Google does not say you can't use AI to help create content, but they do say that if you use generative AI tools, the work still needs to meet Search Essentials and Google's spam policies. So the question is not, was AI involved? The question is the final content helpful, reliable, people first, and genuinely valuable? That distinction matters. Google's position is not anti AI content, it is anti low value content. The guide also talks about organization and media. Google recommends organizing content in a way that helps readers using clear paragraphs, sections, and headings. That sounds basic, but it is still important. If a human cannot easily follow the structure of your page, it is probably not ideal for search either. Google also says images and videos can create more opportunities to appear in generative AI search, just like in regular search. So, this is another reminder that content strategy should not only mean text. For many topics, strong original visuals, charts, screenshots, product photos, process photos, videos, demos, and explainers can all make a page more useful. This is especially relevant for e commerce, local businesses, reviews, tutorials, travel, real estate, recipes, healthcare, home services, and anything where the user benefits from seeing the thing being discussed. Next, Google gets into the technical side. And again, the message is not that there is a brand new AI SEO technical stack. The message is that your technical SEO still matters. Google says the way it finds and processes your pages remains the core of how its AI systems access your data. That means your pages need to be crawlable, they need to be indexable, they need to be eligible to show snippets, they need to meet Google's technical requirements. And if you use JavaScript, you still need to follow JavaScript SEO best practices. Google also mentions semantic HTML, but the nuance here is important. They are not saying your HTML has to be perfect. They say Google can understand imperfect HTML because the web itself is messy, but they do recommend using semantic HTML when possible because it helps users, including people using screen readers, parse and navigate the page. So, yes, clean structure helps. But no, there is not some magic AI ranking boost for perfect semantic markup. Google also brings up page experience, reducing latency, making the site work well on all devices, and making it easy for people to distinguish the main content from other page elements. Again, this is classic SEO and UX, not new, still important. Then we get to local business and e-commerce. Google says generative AI responses can include product listings, product information, and local business information. So for e-commerce and local brands, Google recommends using tools like Merchant Center and Google Business Profiles to help products and services be visible in both AI responses and other search results. That is a very practical takeaway. If you are a local business, your Google Business Profile still matters. If you are an e-commerce site, product feeds and Merchant Center still matter. If you sell products or services, the structured data, business details, inventory, reviews, prices, availability, and local relevance around your entity still matter. This is not just about blog posts. It is about the entire information layer around your business. Now let's get to the myth busting section, because this is where Google directly pushes back on a lot of the AI SEO noise. First, Google says you do not need llms.txt files or special AI text files to appear in generative AI search. And that does not mean Google can never crawl different file types. It can. But Google is saying these files are not treated as some special required mechanism for generative AI visibility. Second, Google says you do not need to chunk your content into tiny pieces for AI to understand it. This is a big one, because a lot of people have been talking about chunking as if you need to break everything into little AI friendly blocks. Google's position is that its systems can understand nuance across multiple topics on a page and show relevant pieces to users. There is no ideal page length. Like, short pages can work, long pages can work, and the page should serve the audience and the subject matter. Third, Google says you do not need to rewrite your content just for AI systems. You do not need to chase every long tail keyword variation. You do not need to write in some weird robotic style. Google says its systems can understand synonyms and general meaning, so you do not have to obsess over exact match phrasing for every possible query variation. Fourth, Google warns against seeking inauthentic mentions. And this is another important one. Yes, Google's AI features may reflect what is being said about products and services across blogs, videos, forums, and the broader web. But trying to manufacture fake mentions is not the answer. Google says its core ranking systems focus on high quality content and its other systems block spam. So the play is not fake buzz. The play is real brand presence, real discussion, real citations, real reviews, real expertise, and real reasons for the web to talk about you. Fifth, Google says not to overfocus on structured data. Structured data is not required for generative AI search. There's no special schema.org markup you need to add for AI visibility. But Google still says structured data can be useful as part of your overall SEO strategy, because it helps with eligibility for rich results. So the practical takeaway is use structured data where it makes sense. Use it correctly. Do not expect it to magically make you appear in AI overviews or AI mode. And do not sell schema as a standalone AI visibility hack. Then Google talks about AI agents. And this is a newer part of the conversation and probably a preview of where things are going. Google describes AI agents as autonomous systems that can perform tasks on behalf of people, like booking reservations or comparing product specifications. They mention that browser agents may access your website, analyze screenshots, inspect the DOM, and interpret the accessibility tree. That is a different kind of optimization problem, because now we are not just thinking about how a search engine crawler reads a page. We are thinking about how an AI agent might use a page to complete a task. Can it find the product specs? Can it understand pricing? Can it interact with forms? Can it compare options? Can it determine availability? Can it book, buy, reserve, or request information? Can it understand what the business does and what action the user can take next? Google does not provide a huge agentic SEO playbook in this guide, but they do point people toward agent-friendly website best practices and mention emerging protocols like Universal Commerce Protocol. So I would treat this as an early signal. AI agents are not just a theoretical future. Google is already telling site owners to start paying attention. Now, what should you actually do after reading this guide? Here's my practical interpretation. Number one, stop separating AI SEO from SEO when you are talking about Google search. For Google, this is still search. AI visibility is not divorced from crawling, indexing, quality, relevance, authority, user satisfaction, and the broader web. Number two, audit your content for commodity content. Look at your blog posts, service pages, location pages, buying guides, product category content, and educational resources. Ask yourself, could any decent AI tool generate something very similar in 30 seconds? If the answer is yes, that content is probably too generic. Add experience, add expert commentary, add data, add real examples, add photos, add local details, add original analysis, add a point of view, add something that would be difficult for a generic AI system or a random competitor to reproduce. Number three, do not chase fake AI hacks. Do not panic create LLMS.txt files because someone on social media said it is the new robots.txt. Do not break your pages into unnatural chunks. Do not rewrite everything in an awkward AI answer format. Do not mass produce pages for every query fan out variation. Do not buy fake mentions and call it entity optimization. And do not assume schema alone will move the needle. Number 4, fix the technical foundation. Make sure important pages are crawlable, indexable, internally linked, fast enough, mobile friendly, and eligible for snippets. Make sure your main content is accessible in the HTML or otherwise processable by Google. Make sure JavaScript is not hiding critical content. Make sure duplicate and thin pages are not wasting crawl resources. Number 5, strengthen your entity footprint. This is not exactly how Google phrases it in the guide, but it follows from the local, e-commerce, and broader web discussion. For local businesses, your Google Business Profile matters. For e-commerce, Merchant Center matters. For brands, real mentions, reviews, videos, forum discussions, product data, author expertise, and high-quality web presence all matter. Not fake signals, real signals. Number 6, start thinking about agent usability. Could an AI agent understand your page? Could it compare your products? Could it extract your business details? Could it complete a task? Could it use your website without getting blocked by confusing design, broken forms, inaccessible elements, or unclear information? That may become much more important over time. So the big takeaway from Google's new guide is this. AI search optimization is not about abandoning SEO. It is about doing real SEO better. Better content, clearer structure, stronger technical foundations, more original value, better multimedia, better local and product data, real brand presence, and less obsession with shiny, unsupported AEO and GEO hacks. Google is basically saying, like, you do not need secret tricks. You need a site worth retrieving, citing, summarizing, linking to, and sending users to. And in the AI search era, that may be the most important SEO principle of all.